Hello and welcome to another video of my opening series, Mastering the Basics with the English Attack. On today's video, we're gonna cover the Najdorf with e5 line. By far one of the most popular Sicilians you're gonna find when you're trying to get into the English Attack. And we're gonna cover this with one of the biggest specialists, one of the most famous specialists of this line, which is Ian Nepomniatchi. He beat Greta Firouza in this very important game on the Candidates Tournament on 2022. And let's get into it. So as we already expected, we're gonna get into the English Attack by setting up the English Attack the way that we've talked about throughout the last 5 or 6 videos. In this case, Ian Nepomniatchi, Nepomniatchi picks the f3 startup. We discussed about briefly that bishop e3 is also okay, but you have to deal with the famous Kasparov replied knight g4. Many times played by the world champion Garry Kasparov with complicated position. Not bad, it's just that unnecessary. You can avoid that entirely by playing the strong move f3, and you don't have to deal with it. One move that you might have to deal with is a queen b6. This is something that you don't get with the bishop e3 line, but you do get against this f3 move. Now here, the idea is that we're also gonna get up into the English Attack, but we cannot play bishop e3 because of the pawn b2 hanging. So here we have to do a little bit of a trickle. We have to actually go knight b3. And then the idea is that, well, now the black queen is controlling the diagonal, so we cannot play bishop e3. But if we do this, we're going to be able to go queen e2, bishop e3, and long castle. So it is not exactly the position that we've been trying to get with the queen maybe on d2, but it is an English Attack setup, and we're ready to go g4, g5. So very, very similar to what we've seen, with the difference that the queen is on d2. Now you might say, wait, we just wasted a tempo with this queen. Well, the bishop is not really important for us to develop, so it's okay that the queen is where it is. The other thing is that black also wasted a tempo by going queen b6, then queen c7. So 2 queen moves are not usually necessary in the Najdorf. Black had to do, and it didn't really stop us from accomplishing the position that we wanted. So this is the only downside I would say about the f3 line, that it does allow the queen b6 move, but it's not something you're gonna find very often because it's not supposed to be that good for black. So most people are just gonna go e5, or some people will play e6, and we transpose into a regular Scheveningen or neither with e6. Now black here play e5. We talked about this briefly, where basically we always gonna go back to b3, and then we're gonna follow with the same setup as usual, as bishop b3, queen d2, long castle. So black goes bishop b6. Many times black can play bishop b7. There's a lot of things black can do, but we're also doing the same. So bishop b6, bishop b3, bishop b7, queen d2. Now here black castles. Another move that could go almost in the same way is knight b d7, in which case we will castle. A move that is important to mention here is the move d5. This is always something that we have to be aware of. Against the English Attack, black wants to equalize, black wants to break the center. Black doesn't want to leave that pawn on d6 weak. So d5 is a very possible move, but in this case, it's actually considered really tough for black, because after we trade the queens, white can simply go castle, attacks the bishop with the tempo, followed by knight c5 and knight 5 ideas. White will force black to eventually give up one of those bishops, and we're gonna be playing a bishop pair endgame where white has all the winning chances and black is just gonna be suffering. So this is why people don't play this with black, because basically you're playing for 2 results, either draw or lose. So yeah, it's not fun for black to play that position. That's why people, again, at the top level, they don't play d5 here. They actually just simply castle or play knight b7. And now we're gonna go with long castle. Now, one of the most popular lines that people are playing today, and this is to stop the main idea of the English Attack. As you know, we always go in g4. You want to go g4, g5, and black is now playing moves like h5. They even do that earlier, even before they castle. They just go ahead and play h5 to stop the main move g4. And they continue on development the same way. This is, again, for another video. Today we're gonna cover the main line on how to play with this position that we're now done. So we're ready to go g4. Of course, we're ready to go like we already talked about in the Najdorf. We want to go g5 first to see where that knight is going. Black goes b5, g5. This position is just the beginning of a very, very long theoretical position. But once you get the ideas, the moves are gonna flow very quickly. So now g5 obviously defines the knight, and most of the time here black will black will just play knight 5, or they will actually go back to e8, which is one of the other moves that are possible. This one here is not good because it allows our knight to jump to d5. So another one that's more serious is knight 5. and we will talk about again in another position, but you can find games online on this, and there are many top players playing this with both colors, black and white. But the best move here by far is the move b4. This gives black basically the opportunity to counter the trade, the attack of the knight. If you take my knight, I take yours. And again, this is another theoretical position, very interesting, and it's also good for white. I definitely recommend if you want to play this to surprise your opponent. Slightly better for white. Again, many games, really good position for white to play for a win. But in this one, we're actually going to ignore this, and we're gonna play the only move pretty much is knight e2. There are other moves that are possible here, like knight d5, but knight e4 is already not the best. So we're going for the main line, which is knight e2. And there's the idea of knight e2 is to, in a way, stop knight h5. We've talked about the importance of leaving the pawn on h2 in a previous video, where basically if black goes knight h5, we got this incredible move knight g3, which is almost crushing already. A very tough position for black, because the knight cannot really defend our attack. Instead, it's targeted right away. Taking will basically crash black's position. So not good for black to do that. So black here has to follow with knight 4, and then we got this move to protect the pawn. There you can find some really easy to play games for white in this position where white got a huge advantage. So definitely not recommended to go knight 5. That's what the only move on the best is knight e8. This is what Alireza played. And here the follow-up is almost immediately you have to go f4. So one of the things you're gonna notice about this position is that we're actually changing a little bit of the way that we play. In here we can also go h4, and this position becomes a normal English attack setup. We might have to go rook g1, h5. But black here, black has a serious attack here with a5. Now this is the whole point of this line. You're gonna have to make a move like king b1, a4, and knight c1. And again, you can find games on this. White is doing okay. It is a very complex position with both players having chances. But this idea that we just saw here, we're gonna see it in the game that we're gonna follow, Nepomniatchi's game. Very typical to put the knight on b3 on c1 in the knight with d5, because you don't have the usual knight d4 move because of the pawn being there. So the knight on c1 becomes a huge defender of the pawn structure here, and is very good for white, because at the end of the day, we're trying to attack while we defend. It's very important to not just go attack without paying attention to what's happening on the left here on the queen side. For example, if you would have done something like knight g3 and I go a4 and you have to go here, we mentioned this in some of the videos before. Horrible place for the knight, the worst possible place for the knight in an English attack. The knight should always come towards the center, never to the side. That's just not for the English attack, for any position, but in here, especially really bad for that knight. So that's why we got to give that king b1 so that knight c1 can be played. Now we're gonna go back to the main line, and that's f4. And again, we're just starting. Black has to play a5. There are some other moves here that are possible, but they're not considered good. For example, pawn takes pawn would not be a good idea, because then once again we said what we said is that allows that knight to actually come back in the game in a very aggressive way. So this move a5 king b1, obviously this is a lot better for white than it is with the knight coming on c1. Now knight has a lot more activity, obviously, and it's not going to be good for black. That's why black needs to do this a5 right away. And now here again, follow up, very theoretical. You have to play the beautiful move f5, and you notice that we are shifting a little bit. We're not doing h4 h5 and all of the classic attack here. And that's because this is a little faster. We're obviously already attacking this bishop. We're going to have this f6 move that comes up later in the game, which opens up the position, creates a lot of craziness for black. Now, black here is the best move. Again, I mean, there are two moves here. You have to check another move like a4. This is the other line that is theoretical, goes very deep. And there's some awesome moves here like pawn takes bishop. There's knight d4. There's like crazy stuff here. Very interesting line to learn for everybody. But in this game, Alireza picks what I call an inaccuracy, a dubious move. And here white had already a huge advantage. I mean, the position already looks very bad. I mean, if you think about this, knights and these bishops, the position doesn't look very active for black. This move is weak and nobody should play this. a4 is by far the best move. And here Nepomniatchi plays a very logical move, king b1. I mean, we've been talking about this, king b1, king b1, king b1 every single time to try to get that knight to c1 after a4, and white has a great position. This is actually what happened in the game. A more precise way, a more precise move would have been knight g3. Now, this is a completely counterintuitive to what we just said. But basically, the most important thing is that we get rid of that bishop. It comes at a cost, though, because we're going to have to take this and allow the move a4. But then getting rid of that bishop, and we just said that, hey, you should never put the knight on a1. But in this case, getting rid of the bishop is actually more important than the knight sitting on a1. Also, it's going to be a temporary. You better get that knight back in at some point, somehow. So, a little hard. That's why I'm guessing Nepomniatchi decided to just go king b1. It does look a little scary to have to go knight a1. I don't like it. It's a weird computer evaluation thing. But a4 is very good, and the position is still a slightly better for white. I mean, why moves are a little easier to play. No, we got this knight coming through g3. We want to trade off that bishop. We know that against b3, we are able to take. And a very typical way to approach this is to go a3. So again, we got to keep the defense on our left side. So something like b3 will be answered with pawn takes, and a3. We're going to lock it up. We're not even going to take that pawn, even though maybe it is possible, and I'm sure it is fine. A lot of the time, you don't take that, you ignore that, and you close the file for the rook so that there's no attack, making it almost impossible to create a file here, other than if you want to sack the bishop for the pawn. So very typical standard defense here is to go a3. Another one, another move that was playing the game is d5. D5 is it's a good move. Black tries to bring the knight, because one of the big problems for black in this position is this knight on e8, right? You couldn't bring it to h5 because it would have given away knight g3. So you now have to bring it in a much slower way. But you also have to deal with f6, which is practically trapping the bishop. So there's a lot of things black have to do. When I play f6, pawn takes, I open the g file, which is a crashing file for black to deal with. So Alireza played d5. And here, this is finally the time, right? We did all this move, f4, f5, for what? Oh, we got tempos, but let's open files, right? That's our main goal in the English attack. Let's open the files. The files only get better as they start from the corner into the center. So if I open the H file, it's better than if I open the G file, and if I open the G file, it's better than if I open the F file, and so on. So I don't care which file, as long as it's the H or the G file. I want some of those too, because those are the big ones. Those are the ones that will give us a pretty large attack. So F6 is such a monster move, because if you don't take, I'm taking you, and I still create a lot of issues for your king. So here, Alireza took the pawn, and notice that we're actually giving up a pawn for initiative. We're giving up a pawn to accomplish what we really want in this position, which is create an open file, right? Look at that file. I mean, it looks awesome, right? So after that, white has to make the move knight g3. This is important because we do want to bring the queen in. We want to get rid of the only piece that's in some way attacking the bishop. Another thing that's important here is that we are not trading queens. We just lost the pawn. This is not a passive position. We have to be very aggressive. We have to play very actively with our pieces. So trade queens, not an option. If anything, let's say bishop takes, which is what happened in the game, we take it with the rook. This is so that we keep that rook here. I'm sure that this would have been fine too, but for example, pawn takes pawn, it is extremely obvious we are moving our queen away. And this is already looking too scary for black. Plus, I'm attacking your queen on d8. You got other issues, but of course, we are not trading queens. Not even if we win a pawn, because we are down now 2 pawns, right? So queen g2, and then the attack would just float too easily. Like knight f5, bishop h6. There's too much, right? So in this game, Alireza is trying to do something, right? White's position already looks too scary for just 1 pawn. So black needs to do something quick, and that's why he goes a3. Notice that he did not play b3. I mean, b3 would have probably... There's 2 ways of dealing with this. Like I mentioned earlier, we could take, and do this. That's one way of dealing with it. Other times, we just leave it alone and we don't touch it. Because if pawn takes, what we actually want... So let's just say here I go bishop h6, which will be winning almost because I'm getting the rook. When I take, I just don't even take the pawn. I actually hide. I let these pawns deal with my defense. When a3 happens, I go b3. And you notice how I'm locking up this position. I'm not going to even take the pawns. I might later, but it's optional. If pawn takes pawn, you can also just take with the queen. And as you can see, you're ready to just continue your attack. There's really not that much going on for black. Sometimes, like I said, you could take and just take everything, and that's fine too. but it will be a little more risky because you are opening files. So remember, giving a pawn up or taking a pawn is not the end of the world in this type of position, because what matters is who has the files, who has the initiative. So in this game, black played a3. This is so that maybe, you know, if you play b3, which is what happened in the game, we're going to lock it up. Again, we're always locking it up, right? Obviously, we don't want to take because it opens the position, We don't want to let black take. For example, bishop a6. This will be probably fine, but it is unnecessary. Why are we giving away a file? There's no reason for that. So it makes sense to just lock it up again, b3. We're only down one pawn. We're not in a big rush. Black goes king h8. Very important move to try to basically bring the rook into the defense. But that's almost the end of the game already, because after pawn takes pawn, white not only gets the pawn back, but white has now a space advantage in the center. Notice how all of the files that matter, the rook and the knight file, are not open. They're actually not even close to be open, and then they have no feature of getting open. But on top of that, all of my pieces, all of white pieces are more active. I mean, look at these knights, look at this bishop, this queen. There's no actual attack, right? So one of the things about the English attack is a lot of the time you can actually switch from attacking on the king side and going, you know, crazy on the king side to become a more solid, more positional play by putting pressure in the center. So sometimes it's a mix of the two. You control the space in the center while you continue improving your attack on the king side. So this is already, as you can see, big problems. There's too many problems for black already, you know. So black goes knight d6 to stop the jumping of the knights. But then, of course, well, that comes with a price. Look, you're hanging the pawn because you just blocked that bishop. So white just took the pawn. And it's just to show you that there's no real attacks here. Now we can probably start marching our pawns. I mean, the space is going to dictate the last thing. Now, another thing is that we are taking this pawn because we are not concerned about the b file anymore, right? We would probably never take the a pawn. I mean, that would be a little too much, right? You have to be aware of that. Which pawn is a weak pawn? Which pawn is the backwards pawn? And we want to make sure we don't take backwards pawns. For example, this b file is extremely well protected by these two pawns. So there's nothing to worry about. Other maybe there's a knight c4 jump or something, but nothing else after that. There's not even a check on a3. So after queen takes b4, black goes rook c8, maybe trying to go knight c4. That's the idea. Another important thing is that there are no good discover attacks here for black, or at least not ones that are dangerous, because we're just gonna go back. So black goes rook c8, trying to go maybe a knight c4. It's a nice little trick, but no chance. Bishop b6, quickly attacking. Black goes queen d7. Okay, we'll still have to deal with the knight c4. So let's actually move the queen away. You don't want to deal with this anymore. This is just a nice finish, but white at this point is already winning, or very, very close to winning. We're taking another pawn. I mean, we don't care. Black's king is more weak than white's king. So rook b8, white moves the bishop again. I mean, this is again just almost any moves here would have won. This is just maybe a little more precise. Knight c4. There's nothing. The knight is just bluffing on c4. I mean, I could happily maybe even go here and I'm fine. But Nepomniatchi just went bang, d6. I'm just a nice little detail there. Now, if you do knight takes d6, I'm just taking your pawn. It's completely crashing. If you take with this, I wouldn't be shocked if I just go bishop f5 and I just keep going with my initiative. I'm giving you a pawn back just to open the files. And so anyway, the game went bishop d8. We're gonna go quickly over this, and I'm just gonna, you know, white make some moves. You notice that black never had a chance to attack because there is no attack at this point. As you can see, even if you stop here, try to come up with a move or a plan, none of these moves work. Knight takes bishop, everything is protected. The file is closed, which is what we care about the most. And then here white went bang, knight f4, just forcing another piece trade, which we always welcome, especially when we're up material. And now look at this pin, it's just too good. And the finish move here, black played this knight b2. That again is just a bluff. There's nothing for that knight there. What is it doing there? Well, attacking my rook. I move the rook. And now here comes the final crashing moment of the game. White to move and finish in a couple of moves. Black had to resign. Okay, I hope you find it. You guess it's a forcing move. Rook takes h7. Black has to take, otherwise what else can you do? King g8. Rook king takes, check. You cannot block because I take your rook. King g8, knight takes f5, and is over. I'm going rook g1. I'm doing everything. So black played bishop f6, rook g1, and Ali Reza resigned. So Obviously, I mean, this is a very high level game where there's a lot of moves that maybe you would not be able to find by yourself. But I do want you to focus on the first, like, 15 to 20 moves of this game to get you started with how to play against the Najdorf with e5. So once again, if you look at this at the English attack and you want to learn how to play with the Najdorf with e5, definitely follow this position. I think one of the key moments of the game is the move f6. That, again, make sure you understand that move, what we're doing there, which is giving up a pawn to open the file that we actually care for. And then we also kept an eye on our defense. We're not just going all in on the right. We have moments there where we had to take a break, like b3, a huge move to keep the files closed, right? So there is an attacking and defense strategy that goes into playing the English attack correctly. And I think this game really shows it because of how easy it was for Nepomniatchi. Hope you enjoyed the game, and again, just start playing the English attack as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.